Hey everybody, welcome to another ActionFeatures.net Toy Talk review. Today we're taking a look at a figure from Funko's reaction line, Disney's The Rocketeer. Real quick, I want to say thank you to Entertainment Earth for sending over this sample for review. That was very nice of you guys. If after the review you're looking to order one of these figures, there'll be a link in the info section on this video, or if you're watching this over at ActionFeatures.net, there'll be a link there to take you over to Entertainment Earth where you can order your own. Let's jump right in here. Funko's reaction line. This is a line where they are taking properties that may not have existed in the 80s, but doing the figures in the 80s style, as if Kenner would have done them back in 1983 or whatever. That simple 5 points of articulation, simple sculpt, not a lot of crazy posing or anything like that, just a straightforward 5 points of articulation figure. There's a lot of licenses they announced in this line all at once, like Back to the Future, Pulp Fiction, Nightmare Before Christmas, a ton of different stuff. The one that I was most excited about, and both of my boys were most excited about, was the Rocketeer, and that is because we love the Rocketeer. We're all big fans of the movie. I myself am a huge fan of the comic as well, Dave Stevens' original issues, and even the newer IDW stuff. I really like the character of the Rocketeer. So when they showed this one, I was super excited to have just a regular Rocketeer figure. Something I didn't get as a kid. The closest we had was like candy dispensers and such. I have the Metacom version, but it's really cool to have an actual Rocketeer action figure. So the packaging, they've used this card back, the card back itself to kind of replicate the movie poster, which I love this packaging. That's one of the really cool things about this reaction line, is getting back to that old school packaging where it's a small bubble with the figure, and there's a lot of thought and imagery put into the card back. I really like that. And using the movie poster is just awesome because it's such a cool poster. So you've got the Rocketeer logo up here, and ages 14 and up. I think you can kind of ignore that. I don't really think this has to be 14 and up. Helmet and rocket pack included down here. The reaction logo, which is very reminiscent of the old Kenner logo. We've got the name of the figure here, the Rocketeer. We've got the figure, his helmet, and his jetpack all down below. And there's no tray inside there. He just kind of rattles around just like figures when I was a kid, which I think is really neat. So it's just a really cool thing to see this looking the way it is. Alright, so here's the back of the card. We've got a look at, make sure this is focused in, there we go. We've got a look at the figure, which looks more like a digital sculpt. I don't think that's an actual figure there. And it's got arrows pointing to his helmet and his jetpack, with a little bit of right up here saying insert backpack tab into hole in back of figure, place helmet overhead, and your Rocketeer figure is ready for adventure. We've got a picture of Billy Campbell as the Rocketeer on the back, and some more of that poster type motif behind the Rocketeer figure. Relive the exciting action of the Rocketeer with authentically detailed reaction figures, which there's only one, so I don't know why it says figures, but anyway. We got Funko and Super 7 down below, and a bunch of write-up and that kind of stuff. I love this packaging. I'm really stoked about it. I think it's super cool. We're going to talk more about that kind of thing over at the couch, but for now, let's get him out of there and we'll take a look at loose version. Alright, so Rocketeer's out of the package. Now, before we get too far into this, I just want to remind everyone that, again, they are going for an old school style here. So what you're seeing is not like a sculpt that would be created nowadays. They were trying to make a sculpt that looked like it was created in the 80s. And in some ways they succeed. I think the articulation is great in that you've just got that head turn, the shoulder turn, and the hips. And a lot of times that's all you need. I think that toys nowadays maybe get a little crazy with their articulation, and it becomes to the point where you can't really, play with the toy anymore if you were a kid. It's just flopping all over the place. This was enough for me as a kid, and it's kind of enough for kids nowadays. They're kind of moving back towards this articulation on a lot of lines. So in that regard, they nailed it when it came to the articulation. I think that the sculpt from the neck down is actually kind of nice too. They've got a lot of detailing captured here, but not overboard, where you're seeing like the folds and the creases in the outfit, overly done. It's just enough. They've got all the little buttons around the chest piece, and they're all painted gold. He's got little detailing on his hands where he's got the controls. For the jetpack, he's got the pants that billow out. The paintwork is kind of clean. It's a little bit on the thick side, it seems like the paint is a bit thick, but it is nice and clean. The back features two pegs that protrude that you fit the jetpack onto, which we'll go ahead and just do now. The jetpack is nicely sculpted. It even has the little piece of gum that he uses to plug up the fuel leak, which I thought was a really nice little detail. The jetpack is probably the sharpest sculpt of the entire thing. Now from the neck up is where things start to fall apart a little bit. This head sculpt is not very good. It doesn't look like Billy Campbell. And I think that even in the 80s, they were kind of nailing head sculpts. I think that Kenner really hit their stride around the time of Empire Strikes Back and into Return of the Jedi. And Mego always did a really good job of capturing likenesses, even in the 3 3/4 figures. So I think they could have gone a little stronger with the sculpt on the head. I don't know if that has to do with they couldn't get likeness rights or what, but the head sculpt is kind of weak. And it seems like it's kind of that way across the board on the reaction figures, that maybe their heads are a little too cartoony, and they could tighten that up just a bit if they really want to capture that Kenner feel. The helmet is a nice sculpt. It's really cleanly painted, but it is big. You get that on his head, and oh, he's fallen over. He's top heavy. And as you can see, it's big. There's no getting around it. It's a fun figure, and it's neat to have the Rocketeer in this scale, but I almost would have just skipped the removable helmet. The likeness isn't that great to begin with, and they had to go kind of big on that helmet to make this work, I think. Again, I don't want to get too down on this, though, because of what they're trying to do here, and the fact that this figure is only $10 for what you're getting. It's pretty cool, and it looks neat on a shelf. And it is kind of cool to have this guy interacting with your old Kenner figures from different lines and such like that. One thing the figure is missing for sure, though, is a gun. Rocketeer is known to be carrying around his trusty, I guess it's a Mauser or Luger. I can't remember which type it is, but it's that style of gun that almost looks like a Han Solo type gun. And he doesn't come with it. And I think that has to do with Disney. I don't think Disney wants guns packaged with the Rocketeer. But you can crib one from a Marvel Universe figure, like the Winter Soldier or something like that, or maybe the Red Skull. That's where I got this from. I can't remember which figure it came from exactly, but the gun fits nicely in his hand. His hands are sculpted to hold something, so you can get a gun in there if you could find one in the right scale. So I think that about covers everything on the figure. Now we'll go over to the couch and give our final thoughts on both this figure and the reaction idea in general.
How do I look?
Like a hood ornament.
Hey, okay, we're over at the couch to give our final thoughts on the Funko Reaction Rocketeer figure and the Funko Reaction line in general. Once again, quick thank you to Entertainment Earth for sending this sample over for review. That was very cool of you guys. Okay, so packaging, I talked about it a little bit in the opening sequence, but your thoughts on the packaging?
I really like the packaging.
Me too, man. I think it's cool. I love that poster.
Oh, right.
As you can see.
I never noticed that was that.
Yeah, it's the poster on there. Cool. I'm a big fan of this. When I grew up, that's how packaged figures came. Like all the Star Wars figures were just like in a bubble. The G.I. Joes were just in a bubble.
You can get a cool card back behind it.
Yeah, and the card backs, that's, I think, one of the, I said in the opening sequence, but I'll say it again, that's one of the cool selling points of this line is that the, my watch is coming open, is that the packaging is so cool. Right. That retro packaging, I think Funko's really got it. They're nailing the packaging. Right. I mean, they're really getting the packaging done right. And the fact that it doesn't have a tray inside there. And when they did like the VOTC collection for Star Wars, at first they had them inside these cases, which kind of defeated the purpose of Vintage Trilogy collection.
Oh, okay.
They were inside these cases at first, which kind of defeated the purpose of doing this old packaging, because you couldn't even feel it or see it. And then when they switched it, all the figures were just like carded like this in the vintage packaging. But, I mean, they're getting it right off the bat that there really just needs to be a piece of cardboard with a plastic bubble holding the figure in. Cool packaging. I really dig it. The figure itself, and I talked about this a little bit in the opening sequence, I personally think that the old Kenner figures were a better sculpt than this. Like the original, like Return of the Jedi and Strikes Back. And I think that they may have gone a little bit too generic with the look of it, but it's still a really, really cool figure.
And I love what they're doing going back to the older movies that never got a toy line.
Yeah, I think it's really neat that they're bringing that back out, you know, that they're bringing back this style and applying all the licenses. I think they just need to tighten up the sculpting just a little bit. You don't have to have a bad sculpt for it to be retro. Right. It's got to just have that kind of, that straight vanilla pose, the 5 points of articulation, that type of thing, and then you'll capture that essence without, you know, making it look like it was part of the Fisher-Price line or something. That's what this reminds me of, is the old like Fisher-Price Adventure people, I think they were called, where their sculpting wasn't the best. It wasn't on par with Kenner or something like that. But the fact that we've got Rocketeer figures for $10 is awesome. I never thought you guys would have a Rocketeer figure.
Well, I just saw the movie recently too.
Yeah, you didn't. You saw bits and pieces as you grew up, but never like sat down and watched it.
And after that movie, I was like, because I knew I was getting one of these in the mail soon. I was like, and that I got really excited about it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's really neat that you guys are getting figures based on movies that are kind of classic and that you're into and things like that. I don't remember when I was growing up. I don't remember a lot of older movies that I would latch on to that I really wanted toys from. I really wanted Wizard of Oz figures when I was a kid for some reason. But it's kind of cool that, like, as a dad, introducing you guys to these classic films and then being able to give you little cheap figures, not something where you have to buy a hot toy or something like that, but something just you can pay $10 for and have it. Dropping the helmet somewhere. And I do like the fact that he's got like the removable jetpack and things like that for kind of play value.
The thing I'm most interested in that Funko is doing is the Back to the Future toys.
Yeah, I think those are starting to hit pretty soon.
Cool.
That's the one thing, is that I'm a little kind of befuddled by the distribution. I don't know if they're only online or what. I hope that they're going to show up in actual stores so you guys can see the Back to the Future figures and decide if you're going to want them. Instead of having to buy them online. That would be a bummer if these are only online. I haven't seen them in stores yet, but I haven't really looked that much. Rocketeer hit first, and everything else was hitting around San Diego Con time, so it's possible that they're out in stores. So, yeah. If they can tighten up the sculpting a little bit, I really am excited about the reaction line. But hopefully, they have a ton of licenses, and that's great. But maybe making the sculpts a little bit tighter and the paint's a little bit cleaner would be a big step towards... I mean, look at those old Kenner figures. That's what you got to do.
I only knew about the 3 lines, the Rocketeer, Back to the Future, and then I knew about that they were doing some Nightmare Before Christmas stuff.
Oh, well, a lot of the other ones are more of adult films, like Pulp Fiction and Escape from New York and things like that. Stuff that you wouldn't be able to watch. I was just telling you about the licenses that
I would be able to get toys from.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess that's about it on this one. If you want to check out pictures of it, hit the info section below, or if you want to have the link to where you can order one of these figures, they're all in the info section if you're watching this on YouTube. I guess that's about it, right? All right, so we're going to see you guys next time.
Bye.